Welcome to another episode of Heart Chat, Conversations of Quantum Expansion, hosted by Claudia Lore and Susan Smotty. Today's topic is emotional triggers. I am Claudia Lore, a Brooklyn-based practitioner specializing in quantum healing hypnosis, reconnective healing, introspective hypnosis, and marconics.
Hi, I'm Susan Smotty. Thank you for joining us. You can reach me at sacredconnections8.com and find out what I do. I do BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing, and I also do some channelings. And so you can just check me out if you feel like it.
Excellent. So before we jump into today's discussion, we would like to take a moment to recite a personal intention to merge both our heart and mind energies and connect with inner wisdom. So let's all now close our eyes and place a hand upon our hearts. Breathing deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth. We are relaxing, releasing, and letting go of any and all resistance. Imagine your heart illuminating and expanding. We are simply merging heart and mind. Each breath reminds us that inner wisdom lives in the heart realm. We embrace and share as service to others. Here and now, for this moment, we align our energies, hearts, and minds. We feel and enjoy that connection. And now it's time to get comfortable and enjoy this quantum conversation. Would you like to start today, Susan?
It's fantastic. I just love your voice. I think it's such a blessing to listen to you. It's so soothing.
Thank you. It took many years of hypnosis training, I think, to get to that point.
Yeah, it's special to be able to do that with your voice. So let's talk about triggers and how they actually are here to help us. So emotions are actually our compass. It is because we have an emotional body and emotions that we are able to not be robots. And that's what makes us human. Emotions are just energy trying to flow through. So what happens when we are triggered, it's usually seen as a negative thing. And you are usually tapping into, well, not you, but the emotion is actually tapping into the part of your brain that is called the reptilian brain, which is completely based on instincts. And what happens when you poke a bear? The bear wants to strike, right?
For sure.
And that's what a trigger is. But a trigger is actually there to help you, because if it's not for a trigger, you wouldn't know what you need to look at and what there is an opportunity for you to grow from.
Right.
So it is a call to healing. It is a call to love whenever we're triggered. It is not about the other person who is doing the triggering. It is always about ourself, our self-awareness, our self-growth. It's always about our self-mastery. So the triggers are here as a touching point for us to pay attention, for us to become more aware, and for us to take that opportunity to actually grow and heal from wounds that have been placed there from different traumas, regardless of whether they're traumas from this lifetime, from childhood, or if they're traumas, ancestral traumas that have been placed within your DNA. But it is our job to actually heal those.
Yes, I agree. I feel like this is a really important topic for the current state of the world that we're living in. And to me, I sort of get the sense that people are triggered a bit more easily now than, let's say, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I remember growing up and not really feeling like people had such a short fuse.
Mm.
And that's saying a lot because I grew up in New York City. So people, of course, did have high flowing emotions, but it seems like it's more close to the surface now. And so I wonder if that doesn't also tie in very much to the rate of our own personal vibration and the speed with which everything is moving lately. And if the fact that people are moving to a more triggered place more easily as not an opportunity for them to release and deal with the situations that maybe years ago would have taken a long time to surface.
Well, I feel like it's actually due to our evolution. It's due to ascension.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why people are being triggered that much more now, and these wounds are being pushed up to be purged.
Right.
So that is why we're seeing it more often. That is why it's happening more often, because as we are awakened or reawakened, we're actually becoming more and more aware, and we're holding more light within our bodies. And, you know, if there's light, darkness cannot exist. They don't coexist, right? Because they just can't. Once you turn on a light in a dark room, there is light. You don't have any darkness. So that's why the shadow work is so important, especially right now, because when we become more aware of our shadow, then that can all rise, and you actually become more whole as a person. You actually become more integrated. And the reason why we're being triggered is because whatever is there that is not of the light is coming up to the surface for you to process it, for you to heal from it.
Yeah, I sort of get this image in my mind's eye of a human being with light expanding from
Mm-hmm.
inside them and getting brighter, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, it's bringing all of the primal fears and worries and things to the surface so that they can be looked at and purged, as you said.
Mm-hmm. People are scared. People are just really, mm-hmm. People are just really, really scared of the unknown, of being uncertain. And right now there's such a feeling of uncertainty. So we basically have to become comfortable with the uncomfort that brings up in us. And that is another reason why we're so sensitive and why we're being triggered at such high rates, because we actually are going through this transformational process. We're actually transmuting a whole lot of ancestral trauma at this point. And then, you know, we can talk about the astrological events that are going on that are actually helping us in this process, because I see everything as helping us. Nothing is hurting us. And everything is happening for us. The universe is wise and loving. And so everything is happening for our benefit at all times.
And I think it's finding peace with that, you know, making peace with that notion, so that in times of being triggered, you don't get to a reactive place. You can instead sort of look at it from an elevated viewpoint and figure out where it's coming from, why it's surfacing, and
Mm-hmm.
what to best do with it, rather than just be reactive and lash out or get depressed or get argumentative, which is another thing that seems to happen for some people.
Well, because it's all coming from an instinctual place. So it's triggering that part of the brain, the reptilian brain, the amygdala. That's what it is. It's triggering that part that just wants to react. But if we are aware of how we're feeling, how our emotional system is being triggered, then we can make a choice to take a breather and step away. Instead of react from that place, take a step back, breathe, come back to your center, and then respond from a very centered, heart-centered place. Because what we don't want to do when we're being triggered is just react in that moment, because it's just not, it's going to escalate. So we want to become aware of these things so we can actually de-escalate the situation as opposed to escalate it. And we do have the power to do that. As soon as we become more and more aware, we become aware that we actually do hold all the power, because it's all coming from you.
Well, I think for some people also, they go through several portions of the day dealing with one trigger after another.
Mm-hmm.
So they might be triggered driving to work in traffic, and triggered by another employee, and triggered by the boss,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I can understand that that could really be a frustrating place, because it's compounding one after another.
Well, do you know why it happens that way?
Okay, share with me. Tell me. Tell us, I should say.
I feel that it snowballs because you're not processing, because you're not taking the opportunity to actually look within and integrate whatever it is that is being asked to be integrated. And so you'll be getting other opportunities throughout the day so you can actually do just that. But if you do take the moment when you are first triggered, then it's a completely different experience, because then you're taking control. You're taking your power back, really. You're empowering yourself, as opposed to being this disempowered person who goes around being the victim the whole day.
Yeah, I can certainly agree with that. I mean, we do have the choice to look at any given situation through many different perspectives. And that choice often can be the difference between whether the rest of your day is a complete nightmare, or whether things suddenly start to perk up and get better. And I have certainly experimented with this enough to 100% confidently say that it really does work if you take that moment and actually take charge of your emotional state, and set the intention that you are really not going to let this throw you off center, and that it's just one little bump in the road.
See, here's the thing. When we're triggered, like I said, emotions are actually energy in motion, and energy wanting to flow out of you, right? So what we don't want to do is suppress that or repress it, because then we create more dilemmas within our systems. But what we want to do is allow ourselves to have that moment to actually express these emotions, not to the person who's triggering, because it's not about them, it's about us. So what we want to do is become aware of being triggered, stepping away, going into your cave if you want, and then unleashing or letting out that anger or crying, whatever it is that's coming up for you. Just let it out, let it flow out, because once you do that, then there's movement, then you can actually heal. What we don't want to do is suppress anything, because we create more imbalances within our system.
Right. And long-term issues when
Mm-hmm.
you are suppressing emotions.
Right. So it's not about bypassing. It's not about emotional bypass or spiritual bypass. We actually want to become more empowered by giving better tools to people who may be struggling with being triggered. And a way that I've used in the past, I mean, going back when I was a teenager, was actually going into my bedroom and punching my bed, punching my pillow, because that's not going to hurt me. But it's letting out that anger that has been built up and wants to be released, because that's really what a trigger is. It is a moment of pure instinctual emotions that want to flow out. So it's not about not allowing that to have its place. It's about being aware and empowered and having the tools that can be used to facilitate that release of emotion. And then coming back to whatever it was that was triggering you and being able to respond from a very heart-centered place, because now you don't have that baggage that wants to be unleashed on whoever it was that was triggering you. It's a little more complicated to do if you're on the road and you're being triggered by someone who's cutting you off in traffic. But what I like to do in those instances is actually breathe deep. And I actually use essential oils for that. And it actually helps.
Yeah, I actually have oils in my car as well. And I use them regularly when I'm driving. They're very convenient, and it certainly changes the atmosphere in the vehicle and can switch my emotional state if I get a little bit frustrated or
Yeah, and talking to ourselves actually does help. So yeah, if you want to curse the person out, come back to becoming aware of that feeling and what it is that it's triggering in you. Because it's not about the other person. You can curse out the other person, but it really has nothing to do with that person who's cutting you off. It really has to do with you on a vibrational level.
Right.
You're actually creating that scenario so you can work something through, so you can actually heal something that's within your system.
And also, I think many people can recognize that there are times where the same action will bother you more than others. So someone cutting you off at some moments will really frustrate you, and then other days it's like, whatever, just let them go, no big deal. So depending on where we are in a vibratory place, right, and where we are emotionally, the triggers can impact us more. And I think, to me, I feel like sometimes it's like little tests, that I'm giving myself.
Yeah, they can be looked at it, and yeah, that is totally completely accurate. But it's more about, like, the way I like to see triggers is like the two sides of a coin, right? So on one side, it's good, it feels good, you're being touched. So if someone says, "Oh, I was just thinking about you," that feels good, right? That feels like you're special, that feels like you matter. So they're touching you. It's the same thing, but it's not eliciting some negative response or actually reaction from you, because it feels good. Then you turn the coin over and you have that negative response or reaction. Then you get that triggered point when someone says, I don't know, something like, "You're not a good parent." That could be very triggering for people, and it may not even have anything to do with you, because they're coming from a place that they're working something out too, so you're just sort of like crossing each other's path in that instance to work something out together. So you're actually probably created a contractual agreement to come together at that instance so you can work something out within yourselves. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but I can also see it as being a big challenge for people to have that perspective, because for so many people are living in a very narrow place where it's all about survival and paying bills and getting through the day and just making sure everything's done at home. And so when you're living in that narrow viewpoint, it's hard to switch gears and sort of look at the person who's triggering you or the situation that is causing this emotional upheaval and have any gratitude for it or have any broader understanding of it.
it is difficult. I will not say that it's not difficult, but being aware of it is the first step.
Sure.
You know, once we are aware that that's what truly is happening, then we can actually make a more conscious choice to back away as opposed to escalate the situation. Because once you escalate the situation, like, where can you go from there? You know, you're going to have a fight with someone, you know,
dark places,
it's a very dark place. Yeah. I mean, it's not resolving anything. It's just unleashing the darkness into the collective. It's actually making things worse, not only for you, but for everyone else, you know, because once you have a fight with someone, then the cops get involved, you know, and it just becomes a big mess when you have the power. And if you are aware of that power that you actually have, then you can make a different choice. Then you can say, well, this is not about me unleashing my anger onto this person. Let me go handle that business on my own time, on my own space, you know, and maybe I can respond from a more logistical place. I want to say more logistical as opposed to more emotional, because the emotional at that point when you're triggered, the emotions are raw and they just want to hurt because you are hurt. Mm-hmm. So when you're triggered, you're actually being touched in a wound. You're actually being touched and they're pouring salt in that wound, you know? So it's really painful and it really doesn't feel good at all. But it is about you and your self-mastery, your self-awareness. And if you become more aware of that, then you have a choice in the matter and not react out of that emotional space. Instead, take a step back, breathe, pause, and then be able to respond in a wholeheartedly sort of way, or a more integrated and healed place.
To me, I feel like the very first time that you recognize that something is triggering you, even if you aren't completely able to move past the emotion, but just in the recognizing of it, you have taken a huge step. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just a quick moment of asking yourself, why did that bother me so much? You know, was there something else about that caused me to get this upset? So I think just the awareness of it is a big piece of that puzzle for sure. And that's a great starting point, is just to start having recognition of it, even if it takes a few more instances for you to actually start working it through. Just being aware and acknowledging it, I think, is a good first starting place.
Okay, so I'm going to share something personal. Okay. I was very triggered this weekend, and I actually said, well, I'm going to do something about this. So what did I do? I ended up going to my feelings kit, my essential oils feelings kit, and I did this protocol. And let me tell you, it actually made me feel a lot better. It actually works. And so I'm here to say that there are certain tools that actually do have a huge impact on our emotional system and our mental state, that are material things, that are actual tangible things like essential oils. Yeah, oils are extremely powerful.
But that's a whole other show.
It is.
But I am familiar with the oils you're talking about, and they really help you get to the root of emotional stuff. And it's powerful to have that kind of tool available, for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, I was really triggered this weekend. Not only that, but you know, at the time of this taping, it's August 7th. So we have like tons of planets, like 6 planets in retrograde. So it's a really intense time. That is another reason why it's bringing up all these triggers in people, because there are certain things that have to be purged at this time.
Yes. I was actually triggered earlier today because I was told that it was going to cost me almost $500 to fix my car. And I had just spent a couple $100 last week to fix the car.
Mm-hmm.
So I was feeling kind of triggered myself, but
Yeah.
I had a few moments of being upset, and then I took a few deep breaths and I said, it'll be fine. I'm not going to go down this road today and get myself all worked up. It's just the car, and this happens, and it happens to lots of people. And I just kind of talked myself through it, and it was fine, and it is fine. So
It is fine. It's always fine.
yeah.
That's the thing. We make mountains out of molehills,
Absolutely.
without even realizing it.
Right. That reptilian brain that you spoke of at the beginning of the show really has this ability to do that, to create these insane insecurities and fears that really make you feel like a paper cut is going to cause you to go in for surgery.
Yeah. I mean, it makes us go bananas, literally.
Yeah, exactly. So I know what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
one more thing I really want to bring up as well is that I feel like many people don't even understand the art of breathing and deep breaths.
Absolutely. I agree.
If there's anything that people can take from this that is easy to implement, it's the notion of taking a few deep breaths throughout the day, especially in times of stress or concern or being triggered, because we really are breathing from a shallow place most of the time, and that's not good for us physically nor mentally.
Well, we need oxygen. We need the oxygen to actually survive. Our blood, our cells need the oxygen in order to keep going, Otherwise, well, this is what happens on a physiological level when you're triggered and that part of your brain activates, the amygdala, the reptilian brain. When that activates, it actually creates a certain sensation throughout your body. So even if you can become more aware of your actual body, that would do wonders, because then you'll be aware of how your body is processing this emotion, this emotional trigger. And you'll notice how your heart beats quite fast at this point, and your breath actually stops. You stop breathing, or your breath becomes a lot more shallow. So if you're not breathing, you're not able to think clearly.
Absolutely.
Perfect. And that really makes a huge impact on your ability to respond from a balanced state. You won't be responding from a balanced state. You would be reacting from a banana state.
Banana state.
Yeah.
Should we coin that?
I think we should. You know what?
The lawyer's on the phone.
Well, you know what it is? Coming from a very detached or non-attached place, coming from the observer viewpoint, you can actually see when people are triggered and how that plays out, And if you can manage to do that observation within yourself, wow, that's just phenomenal. And that is just life-changing, because once you're able to take a non-attached approach to your own triggers, you've just won the battle. Within yourself, within your own reptilian brain. You have actually figured out how to control your reptilian brain.
Pretty powerful stuff.
And
I think also once you start to have that awareness, you also can tell when other people hit their triggers more quickly.
Because then you're more tuned in. You're tuned in, tapped in, turned on. You do that. And so you're going to be more sensitive to other people and how other people may be receiving your remarks or your behavior. And then you could make the choice to adjust so it could be a more harmonious interaction.
For sure. Perfect. And that's the goal, everybody. Harmonious interaction. That's the direction I would really like to see the world go in, for sure. Just more respect of each other and understanding that we all stand on common ground, even if it doesn't seem like that most of the time.
Well, I have faith that that's exactly where we're heading.
Yeah, and that's why everybody has to release all this stuff and face all their fears and deal with it, because where we're going as humanity, that stuff can't follow.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It's about love as opposed to fear.
Right. Exactly. Well, with that, I think we can sign off for today's topic, unless there's anything else that you feel like you'd like to add.
I think we feel complete. I think we have said enough for today.
Excellent. So as always, if you'd like more information about either of us, you can find details about me at www.energyloveandlight.com. And Susan can be found at sacredconnections8.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we wish you a blessed evening.
All our love.